Dear brothers and sisters, today's title is A Church Robbing God. Meditation about Malachi chapter 3 verse 8. Will a man rob God? Yet you rob me. But you ask, how do we rob you? In tithes and offerings. I heard a sermon of the pastor, a famous revival lecturer who serves a large church. It was about the tithe with Malachi. He emphasized that some church members are stealing God's thing without paying tithe. The pastor's sermon is not wrong. In Malachi chapter 3 verse 8, will a man rob God? Yet you rob me. But you ask, how do we rob you? In tithes and offerings. One thing to remember, however, is that the issue of tithing is not solely the problem of the common people who pay tithing. Malachi 3:9 says, "You are under a curse, the whole nation of you, because you are robbing me." It was the problem of the whole nation. It was a problem of the general people who pay tithing, and a problem of the priests and Levites who receive tithes and use them. More strictly speaking, you can see that the entire book of Malachi is rebuking the fall of the priest. In chapters 1 and 2, God points out for the priests, not for the common people. Then the people offered the right tithes, which means that the priests turn them into flawed offerings. Therefore, we must know that paying not tithe is a crime to God, but using not tithe properly is also committing a theft to God. Of course, because the sermon is for the saints, there is no need to deal with the issue of using tithes in sermon. But pastors, who preach about a grave crime concerning about offering tithes, must first see if their church is using God's tithes for the right purposes. The purpose of tithing is to serve as a sacrifice, and to be used as a temple operating expense. But Deuteronomy chapter 26 verse 12 says about the main purpose, when you have finished setting aside a tenth of all your produce in the third year, the year of the tithe, you shall give it to the Levite, the alien, the fatherless and the widow, so that they may eat in your towns and be satisfied. The main purpose of tithe is to look at pastors, church workers, and missionaries who have no secular business, and poor neighbors. It is easy to see if tithing is being used properly by comparing with the percentage of tithes in church income and the percentage of expenditure for church workers, missionaries, and relief for poor neighbors. In small churches, tithing often is not sufficient for the clergy or church administration costs, but it can be abundantly saved after using for them in large churches. Therefore, because the big churches are easier to steal God's things, they must be more careful. Malachi chapter 3 verse 8. Will a man rob God? Yet you rob me. But you ask, how do we rob you? In tithes and offerings.